Yesterday was the day when all the doors were reopened. So let's go straight to the stock exchange. We had 1.57, a very big jump to start the final 2 days of the week. Remember, on Monday, the market went down 1.71%. Then it took off 1.57% on Thursday, all happening within this current week that ends today. Get a sense, more sense of on the numbers from yesterday's trading, in case you missed that. Temple Ashaju, who is our business correspondent, and my colleague is live there at the stock exchange. Temple, good morning. Take us through the numbers.
Thank you so much, Bosen. So the market was really upbeat yesterday because earlier we had a bit of sideways trading in the markets, but eventually towards the close of market, we saw some bargain hunting setting in across the industrial goods sector, the insurance sector, as well as the oil and gas sector. Basically, the 6.89% or 6.98% movement that we saw on Dangote Cement was able to move the market upwards, and that was how we were able to arrive at the figure that we saw yesterday in the markets. Given a boost to the insurance sector, again was Wapik Insurance that gained the most in terms of gainers, or what we have on gainers list, and then we then have the 5.26% that we had in O&O, lifting up the oil and gas sector. These were the three sectors that moved yesterday. In terms of the banking sector, where we've seen so much sell-offs, Access Bank was down by 5.26% yesterday, and that ended up impacting the banking sector, where we now had a decline of 0.64% yesterday. Consumer goods sector continued to see a bit of sell-off as well, as livestock was the major company that impacted the sector by over 9% movement to the negative territory yesterday, leaving the sector at 0.39% in terms of performance. NASD OTC was also down by 0.13%. You look at the USI, your unlisted securities market index, where we had a 691.55 points at the close of trade yesterday. Let's go to the bonds market. The fixed income generally enjoyed serious bullish trend yesterday in the market. We had three instruments yesterday that peaked in terms of their yields, but we saw contraction across 12 securities, 12 major instruments yesterday, and that's based on the demand level that we saw in the market. On the average, yields was up by 0.04% to 14.6% across board. The bullish sentiment was one of the things that actually impacted the short to medium as well as the long end side of the curve, where the 18th of April 2037 security, for example, did so well. At the T-bills market, we saw a bit of maturity yesterday, 364 billion naira OMO maturity. Amidst that, we saw the OMO auction carried out for 400 billion naira that was offered by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and it came back with sales of 97.9 billion naira across the 91-day to maturity and the 203-day to maturity, where 11.05% of yield was allotted to the 91-day to maturity, and then the 203-day to maturity had a 12.15%. But at the secondary market, there was so much bullish sentiment as well, where we saw average yield dropping by 0.03% to 12.1%. We saw yields moving across the 1 month, 6 months, and 9 months maturities. That was also down by some 0.05% on the average, 0.13% decline for the 6 month instruments as we had yesterday.
It's been one step forward, one step backward since we started the week, caught in half by the two-day Muslim holiday. Temple Ashaju is still at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Is live to us now from the main trading floor of the NSE. He's bringing us to wrap up the program. Temple, let's get back to you with it's been a very interesting week so far. So give us a sense of what you're hearing and what you know about the week and what lies ahead for next week when we wrap up the month.
So it's been a very, very surprising week at the moment. We even have a 10% movement currently on Dangote stock again. Recall that yesterday we had another about 10% movement, 9.98% yesterday, 6.98% precisely in the movement. But this morning, we already have some 10% movement. And barring any negative movement in that particular stock again this morning, the market is likely going to close upbeat again today. So market is basically just preparing for some of the things that we are expecting, some of the events coming up next week, talking about the anticipation of the Q2 GDP data, talking about the launch of International Breweries plants in Shagamu, as well as the earnings of Zenith Bank that will be paid out next week. And we've seen reactions so far to what has transpired in the banking space, where Fidelity Bank, Access Bank, and UBA are all yet to release their earnings. Yesterday, we know that Fidelity Bank released an announcement on its closed period, and this simply means that the H1 earnings is yet to be released, and cautious trading has been advised generally on the part of investors, whether corporate or institutional investors this time, as to what will become of that result. No one knows what could happen yet. Year to date, Fidelity Bank is down by some 36%, and we know that within the last 11 sessions, 9 of those sessions we saw declines in Fidelity Bank. So these are sort of things that investors are carrying on their mind as we speak. Bosun.
Yeah, again, but next week is going to be very interesting because of the GDP numbers coming through on Monday. That's the big meat that you can chew, sink your teeth in, and I'm sure everyone will be swarming over that. When 8:30 in the morning, that's what the MBS says today, 8:30 in the morning. So it's going to be a breakfast for you and I and everyone else on the street.
Absolutely. Yeah, but that simply means that, first of all, the offshore investors have been reacting to our markets, given the political tensions. For that reason, we don't think that there should be much reaction to the GDP numbers. Again, the GDP numbers are somewhat expected to be lower, and if that's the case, then we'll probably have the central bank, being accommodative in terms of the unemployment rate, in terms of the MPR, in terms of interest rates on the part of monetary policy authorities now. But if that's the unemployment rate also comes lower, then we're likely to have MPR retained at the current levels that we have it. I mean, that's what traders are saying. That's what analysts are saying. So we don't really expect any difference in terms of market numbers now. Investors, offshore and domestic, have priced in all of this anticipation, and we're not likely to see any change. I mean, look at the Q2 capital importation numbers that came in. It's already reflective of the fact that offshore investors are taking exits. In terms of the portfolio investments in the Nigerian market, that was down by some 12%. So all of these have been priced into the system, and so we don't think any difference should be happening. The only thing that is likely to move the market next week will probably be the launch of International Breweries that will be coming up in Shagamu. Investors have already reacted to Zenith Bank's 30 kobo interim dividend. Wilson.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting next week. Let's take off some weekend tempo, you and I, lay back a little bit, then come back to that very heavy GDP breakfast on Monday, 27th of August. And that's how we'll wrap it up to today. Everyone, thank you very much. Lay back for the weekend. Take some time off. Avoid the Terminal Bridge until Sunday night or early morning on Monday. Then we'll all open back for business. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend, and goodbye from Lagos.